finally superseded by the bombers of World War II. As the loser of the First World War, Germany was stripped of resources and forbidden to rearm. But in 1924, Germany joined with the USSR and secretly opened a military pilot training school. In 1935, the Nazi leader Adolf Hitler openly established the Luftwaffe, and the Air Force's pilots and aircraft made their mark in the Spanish Civil War. The Luftwaffe was used to good effect in 1939 when it opened up hostilities in Europe. Leading the fleet was the Heinkel HE-111, an aircraft designed in the early 1930s in violation of the Treaty of Versailles. The medium bomber played important roles in the Battle of Britain, the Eastern and Western Fronts, the Mediterranean and North Africa. The Junkers Ju-87 and the Dornier Do-17 carried out successful bombing raids and helped the Luftwaffe become Europe's premier air force. When British anti-aircraft guns and fighter planes shot down HE-111 in the early months of the war, there was great rejoicing, but the joy was short-lived.
In this dramatic reconstruction, we tell the story of a German Heinkel bomber. Britain's air defenses went into action. Our fighter planes gave chase. There was a dogfight in the sky. With fierce fire from our anti-aircraft and fighters, the German machine was crippled. Gradually forced lower and lower, it fled out across the moors. And now, here lies a German raider, riddled with British bullets. Those bullets killed the 2 German gunners and wounded the pilot. But all the same, he did a fine job, zigzagging to try and shake off his pursuers, and finally pancaking down in the heather without destroying his machine. This is the latest type of German long-range bomber. According to their propaganda, it was faster than any in the world. It was absolutely unbeatable in the air. Yet here it lies, a tribute to Britain's air defenses.
In April 1940, Germany swept into Denmark and Norway on its way to establishing a presence on the Atlantic coast. Under the command of Lieutenant General Hans Ferdinand Geisler, hundreds of Luftwaffe aircraft bombed towns and military installations. The Scandinavians were swiftly crushed. Luftwaffe bombers also savaged the British home fleet, preventing an Allied counterattack. Holland and France were the next to fall, providing Germany with the perfect staging point for air attacks on Britain.
Nazi planes, now only a few minutes' flight from the English coast, set out to bomb the British people into submission. Britain hung on. They bombed railroads and factories to disrupt transportation and war production. They bombed by day, and when the Royal Air Force smashed more than 180 of the bombers out of the sky in one session, they bombed by night. The face of London changed.
The Germans used the Junkers Ju-87 to spearhead the Blitzkrieg on Britain, a dive bomber that had caused havoc during the battle for France. This 2-seater ground attack aircraft dived low towards its target before releasing its payload with pinpoint accuracy. But although the Junkers was the best bomber at the Germans' disposal, it proved no match for England's fighter planes.
Strike at the railroad, for then the victim cannot mobilize. It cannot move men and supplies. Its armies are isolated.
Britain's sophisticated radar defense gave the English early warning of the German raids, and squadrons of Hurricanes and Spitfires scrambled into the air, ready to make mincemeat of the German bombers. It wasn't long before the Junkers were hastily pulled from service as German losses mounted up. Instead, the HE-111 and Do-17 rumbled through Britain's airspace, delivering bombs day and night in an attempt to undermine civilian morale. In 1941, Hitler sent his troops east to invade the Soviet Union. Reconnaissance aircraft pinpointed bombing targets, including ammunition dumps and airfields. The Luftwaffe's mission was to destroy the Red Army's air fleet on the ground. The Soviets were so unprepared for an air attack that their aeroplanes were clustered on the ground in peacetime configurations rather than dispersed. They made easy picking for German bombers, who accounted for thousands of Soviet aircraft. This gave Germany air superiority until 1943, when the Soviets began to hit back in newly designed fighters and bombers. In the early years of the war, the British Fairey Swordfish torpedo bomber achieved surprising success. The outmoded biplane, known as the Stringbag for its ability to carry any type of cargo, was made from metal and fabric and featured folding wings for use on aircraft carriers. In November 1940, the Swordfish played a pivotal role in the Battle of Taranto, the first all-aircraft naval attack in history. Using modified torpedoes dropped from a low height, the British inflicted heavy damage on the Italian fleet. The following year, Swordfish pilot Sub-Lieutenant John Moffat launched the torpedo that jammed the Bismarck's rudder and steering gear and enabled British destroyers to sink the great German warship.
With swift decision, the RAF replied to the Nazi raid on the Orkneys when the first civilian was killed on British soil. A large number of RAF bombers set out for the fortified German island of Sylt and bombarded seaplane bases, ammunition dumps and harbors up and down the island continuously for 6 hours. List, of which this is an aerial photo, had its share, as well as the Hindenburg Dam. Britain has shown her determination to answer Nazi raids in a language the Boche will understand.
Just before the war, the RAF commissioned 250 Hudson light bombers from the American Lockheed Corporation. Adapted from the Model 10 Electra civil airliner, the Hudson sported Lockheed's distinctive twin-tail configuration and featured a transparent nose to help the bomb aimer.
These B-14 bombers, better known as the Lockheed Hudson bombers, are rolling off the production line at an ever-increasing rate. They have been ordered in great quantities by Great Britain and Australia. When ready for delivery by boat, the Hudson bombers are dismantled. The sleek fuselages are carefully encased in canvas, and the wings, already stowed away below deck, are crated in wooden frames for safe shipment. When the planes reach their destination, they are easily reassembled and soon ready to take their places in the staunch defense of the British Empire. And while these planes start on their long journey by water, others are being given their final test flights for the tough job ahead. And still more are winging their way directly toward Canada.
The mid-wing monoplane was capable of carrying 1,400 pounds of bombs and had 2 fixed .303 machine guns mounted for defense in both the nose and the tail. In 1940, airborne surface vessel radar sets were installed in a number of Hudsons, which were then assigned to submarine duty. Operating from Northern Ireland and Iceland, The bombers carried out many successful strikes on the U-boats that lurked